Thanks for coming out.
Coach, just starts off, just some thoughts on week 4 here at Ball State.
Okay, well, focusing on trying to get a win, and and you guys cover sports, the difference between winning and losing is, is that much, but that's a mile, So we're working tirelessly 24/7 to just try to close that gap, and what's keeping us from closing that gap. And there's, a myriad of things, and so we just have to keep focusing on them and emphasizing them and practicing them and expecting our guys to go out there on Saturdays and execute them. So, but I'm encouraged by the resolve of the players, the determination, the attitude, and being close. It doesn't matter unless you win. So we got to do that, and I feel like this is the right group to do it. So, but I'm encouraged. At the same, I'm disappointed, but I'm not discouraged. I shouldn't say I'm encouraged. I'm not discouraged. I feel like we've got the type of people around here that that will make the commitment to getting it done, and we'll get it done. So.
You guys got beat up a little bit on Saturday. Do you have an update on Mel? I saw you posted a picture of an X-ray.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I was wondering how people knew that he was out. Well, we knew he was out from the game, but Mel actually, he has surgery in about an hour. They're going to put a little plate in there. It's probably 6 to 8, clavicle, collarbone. Was that the same thing? Yeah. A different, opposite shoulder that he had surgery on this off season because he had to recover from surgery this off season. So, you don't ever like to put a time limit on what it's going to take a guy to recover, but it's a little bit different when you're dealing with a bone. There's a little more clarity. So they say 6 to 8 weeks. So, I think the best case scenario is that, we get him back for, the last couple games of the season. And if we can, get to a bowl. We'll have to make decisions based upon how much he's played and what he thinks, whether it's, whether it's the right decision to play him or, give him a chance to redshirt and save a year. So, but we've got a good room, a good group of running backs. We'll certainly miss him. He's an explosive player for us, but we've got guys that can go in there and get the job done.
Is this a chance for Victor Rosa to?
Yeah, Vic showed up. I think Vic's done a good job this year. He hasn't gotten a lot of touches, but he's made the most of them. Thought he had a really nice run the other day, a couple of them. Got to eliminate that fumble that got called back. We haven't really seen Oliver until the other day. He got a carry, ran it up in there hard. MJ's a guy that can do things for us. You've seen that we've used Terrence back there. We've got Meach, so it's a good room. But you're always going to miss a playmaker like Mel, especially because he does things on offense and he's a good kick returner as well. But that's the nature of the game, and we're all, our thoughts and prayers are with him as he goes into surgery, and we know he'll recover fast and he'll do all the work that he needs to do to get back out here. And we know that he'll be around the team, and his infectious energy will help us.
What qualities does Victor add to the running game?
Victor is experienced, number one. He runs hard. He's a multi-talented guy in terms of he can run. He is good out of the backfield catching the ball, and he's a good pass protector. He's a very smart player, and I think he gives us juice. He runs hard. Kind of not. I don't want to say an out of control style, just an angry type of runner, and he finds the end zone. He's found the end zone a lot around here for the number of touches that he's had.
Jim,
Joe.
I've seen every play of every game in person. I don't see it like the coach, but what I see is the team that's 2 plays away from being undefeated. Why isn't that a positive assessment of what the program is right now?
Man, I love your positive attitude, Joe. Thank you. It's as a coach, you get a little conflicted because what you're saying is so true, right? It's a couple of plays. But if you don't dive in really deep on why those couple of plays went the wrong way, and not just say, well, next time, we'll get it next time, or say, hey, we have to make that play. But for players, you have to define what it's going to take to make that play, not just say, hey, next time you got to make it. You got to go back and say, okay, why didn't we make that play? Did we not do a good job of coaching the right technique? Were we in the wrong coverage or play? So you have to give them a plan of action, and then you expect them to take that plan of action and put it into action. And I feel the same way. You know, I feel like we're like I said, I mean, man, we're that close, but in competitive athletics, as you guys know, that close is, you know, it's like the Grand Canyon unless you close it. And so that's our objective. And as I started this press by saying is, what gives me a huge amount of optimism is that nobody is satisfied with being close. And everyone is really bothered by the fact that we haven't gotten it done, and yet it's a positive energy rather than a negative energy when I say about they're bothered by it. It's nobody's festering on it, but everyone is resolved to do what we have to do to get that gap closed, to make those plays that you're talking about. You know, it's just been 2 tough weeks losing in overtime, given the amount of work that we put into game situations. So we're just going to keep working, and we're going to, you know, keep tearing it apart and putting it back together better as we go.
Coach, what have you seen out of Osiris with the
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
what have you seen out of Osiris with the opportunity that he's been able to get?
Well, I think he's very athletic, and I think he's got a lot of confidence. He works hard. He's very smart. You know, he just turned 18 a few weeks ago, so he's very young, but he doesn't play young. He plays with a lot of enthusiasm. I think he's got a chance to be a very, very good player. You know, he's going to mature physically as he goes through the years here, but I think we're looking at a guy that is going to be a good player, and we have a lot of confidence putting him on the field right now. So, you know, when Devin missed a few plays the other day because of, you know, being nicked up a little bit, you know, you felt good putting Osiris out there, you know. But Devin's a starter, and Devin's playing very well. So most of those guys that got nicked, you know, we finished the game without Juice, without Karsten, obviously without Mel, without Tyrese. Vincent, he came back in after he hurt his hamstring. I was worried it was his knee. So, you know, you walk off the field and you're like, really, oh my gosh, we're really beat up. But everyone was back at practice today except for Mel. So everyone recovered well. You know, we got great athletic trainers and doctors, and they do an amazing job. Like their commitment to these guys, you know, on Saturdays and after the game, and they come in here Sundays for hours, and they just work with them, and our guys respond.
Brian Parham gave up a lot of this season last year because he wanted to be in a different place where he could really showcase himself. What have you seen in him, and you know, what does he add to that defense?
I love his energy, and I love his enthusiasm, and I love his intensity. He plays the game the way you're supposed to play it. He practices the way you're supposed to practice. You know, great intensity, focus. I didn't realize that he'd be as good a pass rusher as he is. I think he's got 5 sacks. 5. I know we've got 10 as a team, which is pretty. You know, we're doing pretty well there. I think he's instinctual, and he has a nose for the ball, as they say. You know, he's played a lot of football. He's been well coached. You know, I know the guys that have coached him through his career, and you know he's been well coached. And now he's got Sariki. So you combine all those things, and you see a player who's really maximizing the opportunity that he created for himself. A lot of times there's a negative connotation with a guy that looks out for himself a little bit and goes into the portal and says, I'm in a red shirt. But, you know, in this day and age, we have to be a little bit more flexible than we were in the past as coaches to guys that do that, you know, and not necessarily see it as a negative, but really investigate why it happened. I know in years past you might say, God, the guy quit on his team, you know. You might, and I just don't think that that's true all the time anymore. So I think it's an adjustment we have to make. And thankfully, with a guy like Brian, you know, we had people that we knew that were close to him that could confirm what kind of guy he was, and we're lucky we have him.
You said last week you didn't think that chemistry was the issue with the defense, that they would get it. After looking at it last week, did you pinpoint better what's missing, that they're not clicking the way they should be right now?
Yeah, and I still don't think it's chemistry. I think it's consistency. It's really like I talked about last week after the Syracuse game, being consistent in our execution and in our effort. And we have not found that to the level we need to find it to be a good defense like we've shown in spurts, you know. And so it's that level of consistency that we're working towards, you know, and it's being really demanding on ourselves and them on themselves, and exacting and precise in how we teach and coach, and it's them taking good notes and reviewing their notes and watching extra film, and then in those critical moments in games, having the discipline, the mental toughness to stay right where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And we just haven't been able to find that yet. And that's disappointing, especially because it's a mature group. So maybe some of that's, not being as familiar with the system as, we would like them to be, as new guys coming in. But I think we just have to continue to emphasize consistency.
Can you feel consistency getting closer?
Yes.
Or see it? And if so, how do you calculate that?
Well, you feel it during practice, and yet you have to see it during a game. Like, I went into last week's game, I think we all did, feeling like that we'd made a lot of strides on defense, and that if we played just a little bit more consistent in certain situations, we'd be a lot better. And, we were not correct. We did not play well. We did not play well statistically. We did not execute well. The one thing that I will tell you that is encouraging is that you talk about a guy like Brian, and we have a lot of guys like Brian, is it's so important to them. They don't shrug it off. They don't take anything for granted. They don't try to rationalize anything. They hit it head on, and that's how you get better. But you feel it during practice, but you got to see it during a game. You got to go out and perform.
Talk about coaches making plays. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I'm just curious what that means.
About what?
Coaches making plays.
I said that? No, I think I meant, like, as coaches, it's our responsibility to put them in the position to do what they do best so they have the opportunity to make plays. It's not asking someone to do something that they're physically not capable of doing. Their body structure, their athleticism doesn't lend itself to the technique or to the function that you're trying to get them to perform. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that we're putting guys in position to do what they do best, and eliminating opportunities to put them in position where they could fail because they're just not, that's not their makeup. So that's such a critical part of coaching, getting the right guys the ball at the right time, or, having the correct matchup on defense at the correct time. And, we're never going to be perfect. And, sometimes a call is going to bail a player out, and sometimes you need a player to bail a coach out. But that's also part of consistency and learning learning your personnel. There's a process to learning who they are and how they react in games, compared to what they do in practice. So.
Is there a certain mindset or skill set that goes into those fourth quarter, late game? Is there something that the players need to have that they don't have?
It's a great question. We do 2-minute drills all the time, and on offense we've been really good. This season so far. Defensively, we have not. I guess, I would say the word is mental toughness, and I'm not intimating that we don't have mental toughness. I'm just saying that, to me, mental toughness is being able to be, at your best in those critical moments, when the pressure's on. John Wooden define competitive greatness as being at your best when your best is needed, and so it's just that aspect of competitive greatness that you have to have, and that's built through confidence. It's built through the work that you do, in the off season, during the week, the trust that you have in the call that's coming in and the player that's playing next to you. So maybe, going back to your question, maybe that is all part of chemistry, So, but like I said, we went out there today. I couldn't be more impressed with the way our players are attacking the situation that we found ourselves in. And I listen, let's not, and I said it after the game, let's not minimize, the type of team that Delaware is. But we're talking about us. I mean, that's a good football team. They've always been good, and, we're still searching for the right formula.
Do you expect Malachi to come back?
Yeah, Malachi McLean, he's back. Yeah, he's back. He's back. He's back.
Just looking at Ball State, what challenges do they present? Obviously, they run the ball decently well.
They run the ball well. Their quarterback's an excellent athlete. He can run the ball well. He can throw it. They moved him over from DB and he's played receiver. He's played running back. He's a quarterback now, so he's a really good athlete. Defensively, they're very sound. They know what they do. They rush the passer. They've also got 10 sacks, so they're They're a good pass rush team. They've got a couple guys on their defense that played here, you know, Alfred Chia and then Nate Vorez, and Nate's got 3.5 sacks. He's playing really well. So there's another, you know, they're a MAC team. I mean, they're going to be tough, and they're going to be solid, and they're going to be disciplined, and they're going to play hard.
We talked an awful lot last week about consistency. Were you encouraged by there being a little more consistency offensively this week?
I mean, we're playing, God, I always hate to say these things. Right now we're playing at a pretty high level offensively. You know, we're averaging 40 points a game. We're ranked really high nationally in pass yards and, you know, points and all those things. I thought we responded well last week when we needed to get, you know, a drive and get a touchdown. We responded well. So for the most part, yes, but I'll go back to that thing I've talked to you guys about now for a couple of years, those except for plays, you know. So, you know, Joe, you asked me after the game about, I think it was you, maybe it wasn't you, about going for it on 4th down. Yeah, so, you know, it's 4th and 1, and you can win the game if you convert, right? You're going to take a knee and it's over. And so that's when you go for it. You know, if you kick a field goal there, and then, you know, you got to put your defense back out there, and they're defending a touchdown, and, you know, we've been struggling. So that's kind of a no-brainer decision, but we have to make those. Like playing really, really well for a lot of the game, but not being able to finish, you know, that's not good enough, you know, or scoring a touchdown instead of having to kick a field goal in the overtime. You know, those are huge things. So, yeah, there's a lot more consistency on offense, but now we have to have finish, you know, and consistency as a team. Like, I would like to see us go out and play a complete team game. Well, you know, play well on special teams, play well on defense, play well on offense.
Is there a leader defensively that these guys can rally around? Does somebody kind of grab that?
Damon Brinson. Damon, and I would say that the way that Brian has practiced and performed on Saturdays and the intensity that he brings to the room, I would say that he's emerging. I think Taekwon is emerging. I think in his own way, Umar is emerging. It's a little bit different vibe than when you had a guy like Jelani or Dow who'd been around here a long time, you know. But it's growing. It's growing. And, you know, to be specific, it's those two guys that I see, Brian and Damon, that are kind of guys are rallying around, really listening to.
I was going to ask you about those short yardage, 4th and 2, 4th and 1. How frustrating is it to not get those? And what does it take on those plays that is different on the first down?
Well, they're going to stack the box more. You know, they're going to put more guys inside to stop the run. And that's why, you know, on that 4th and 1, we tried to run like a little pick and throw it to the flat. And then you saw down in the overtime, kind of did the same thing to Lou. And we had it both times. We were just a little bit off. You know, you gotta be able to get a dirty yard, you know, if you're the running back and it's a running play, or, you know, convert and execute, you know, a short throw and catch. You know, it's those little things that just get you. It's what I'm talking about. Like, you know, instead of the ball being here, it being here, you know. And I'm not talking about, I'm just saying that's an example, because it's you know, throughout the whole team. So you just got to keep drilling it. You know, it's repetition, right? And it's going on, it's doing it over and over and over and again. And you've heard that saying, you know, I don't know the start, but, you know, average people do it till they can't get it, till they get it right. Champions do it till they can't get it wrong. It's kind of adopting that mindset. You know, do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you can't get it wrong. And that's what we're working towards.
Are those plays that take longer to draw up because you're thinking of?
No, you know, we all kind of split the load in terms of game planning on offense. You know, certain coaches have an area of the plan that they're primarily responsible for, and then it becomes, you know, a team, a group effort in terms of putting the final touches on it. So, you know, we have a certain coach that is going to dig really hard into 3rd down stuff, you know, 1st and 2nd down stuff, pressure stuff, short yardage stuff, goal line stuff, things like that. And then we try to come up with the best play to put our players in position to make a play, you know. And you can always go back when you fail and look at it and say, should have called this, you know, should have emphasized this. You know, it eats you alive. You know, I mean, I can tell you, you know, we had a 44-minute flight home, and I think every coach on our staff had watched the film at least twice. before the wheels hit the ground at BDL. And, that's how obsessed you become. But if you want to be successful, you have to be obsessed with what you're doing. And then your actions and your decisions have to match that obsession. You can have obsession, but if you don't have the actions and the decision making to match your goals, you're not obsessed. So I think this is a team and a staff that's obsessed with digging our way out of this and reaching what we believe our potential is.
How much would you say being at home helps build that consistency? Just, how much of a leap can you make just being in front of the home crowd this week?
It's huge. I mean, we love playing at the Rent. It doesn't matter. I'll say this. It does matter how many people are there, but it doesn't, because I know that the people are there are diehards and they're going to bring energy, and we love playing in front of them, and we like being in our locker room, and we love playing on that grass. We love staying at our home hotel. So I think it can be at this point where we are, I think it can help us. It can calm us down a little bit. It can give us that routine that we need. And we know our families are going to be there, and our friends are going to be there, and hopefully our students are going to be there. I feel like we have to earn them back a little bit, like I've said, over and over again. And I believe we will.
Jim, following up on that, have you ever noticed that start times affect how fast your team comes out of the gate? If it does it 3:30 versus noon, does it change the way the game begins, the flow of the game?
I've thought about it, and I've given it a look, and I haven't found a thread, that leads me to believe that a noon versus 12:30 versus 3, we were 3 o'clock last week, we're 3:30 this week. I think maybe we have some later games later. I don't really know. I haven't seen that, Joe. What we try to do is structure our last 48 hours exactly the same, regardless of what time we're playing. And then, we have a plan for no matter what time we kick the ball off in terms of how we're going to spend that day. But I haven't found that is something that we should even mention to the players. We just got to go out, and no matter when they decide the kickoff is and where we're playing and who we're playing, we just got to go play our best consistently. So the word consistent has come up a lot the last couple of weeks, and I think that's something that, it's pretty obvious to people. It's obvious to you guys, obviously, and it's obvious to us. So, all right, we good? You got everything you need? All right, thanks all. Appreciate you. Appreciate you coming out.